A few weeks ago, we welcomed 9 new members to our church, and Laura Lombard's biography was in the bulletin that day, but she wasn't able to come. I want you to know her face and know her, and she's here today. So Laura, would you please stand and be welcomed as a new member? Thank you. Welcome to you officially now. And you'll want to know Laura. She's also running for office. So there are several reasons to get to know her and to enjoy her being part of our faith community. Before Jesus lived, the Celts celebrated the end of the summer, and then they prepared for the coming of the dark months the only way they knew. You see, the end of summer celebration was on October 31st, and their religion believed that evil spirits actually hovered over the earth, ready to pounce on them in the dark. They burned fires and they made animal sacrifices to keep those evil spirits away during the dark winter months. So later, when the Celts were continuing to practice their traditions, Christianity was growing in steam in the Roman Empire. And as Christianity began to spread and span over generations, there were more and more people who died because of what they believed and were remembered in special ways. So the Roman Church set aside special days to remember specific persons, designating those persons as saints. When it became evident that there were more saints than there were days to celebrate them, the church decided to establish a specific day to commemorate all those persons who didn't have the special day set aside for them. In the 9th century, then, to combat the Celtic religion in the British Isles, the church proclaimed November 1 as All Saints' Day and the night of October 31 as All Hallows' Eve, or Halloween. Today, we recognize people, whether living or dead, who by their words and actions have shown us exemplary ways to live. Saint Francis of Assisi's father actually dragged him into court in the town square, enraged because his son had secretly arranged to steal his father's valuable assets and then give them to the monks to sell for the support of the poor. Francis was found guilty. And then he became a monk. He angered the local bishops by creating his own liturgies, including animals in his congregation. But he is one of our most well-known saints. Saint Teresa of Avila was considered crazy, a nut, and way too outspoken for a woman, and shocking in her opinions. Yet, the church named her a saint. Julian of Norwich lost her entire family to the plague and had visions so extraordinary no one knew what to make of them. She, too, was named a saint. Mother Teresa expressed her strong doubts about God in writing and became a nun to escape in her small town of Macedonia. She did not like the life there, so she became a nun to get out of there. She is one of our more modern saints. Oskar Schindler, who saved Jews from the death camp in World War II, was a Nazi. He was also a womanizer and a drunk. He used his popular and well-deserved reputation as a scoundrel to cover up what he was doing. A movie, of course, Schindler's List, was made about his heroic acts. Nelson Mandela was considered public enemy by the government of South Africa. He actually left South Africa and studied how to do espionage, and I'm losing the name of it, but he wanted to become a civil disobedient person and declare war on his own country. It put him in jail for 27 years, during which he was a beacon of hope for Black South Africans. He negotiated from prison a new government, became president, and is known now as one of the greatest South African patriots. Henry Nouwen called these people revolutionary Christians, and he defined them this way, and I quote, "People who attract others by their inner power." When we meet them, we want to know more about them because we get the irresistible impression that they derive their strength from a hidden source that is strong and rich. An inner freedom flows out of them, giving them the ability to be moved by what happens around them instead of letting it shatter them. They listen attentively without getting rushed or excited, and vision guides their lives. They are obedient to it. Many things that seem of gripping immediacy hardly stir them, and they attach great importance to some things that the rest of us simply let pass. Another theologian describes these individuals as spirit people. A spirit person, he writes, is someone who is radically, deeply, and fully alive. We find our own spirits touched by them, our lives enhanced by them, our beings called to new levels by them. So today's traditional word speaks of lives with deep purpose, meaning, and faith. It's a prayer that's actually attributed to Moses, and it will help you to understand the psalm if you understand that it's a poem that kind of alternates between two voices. One of those voices is praise for God, and the other is a contrast voice that is cynicism about life. This psalm asks the tough questions about the meaning of life, and then it ends with some rather profound thoughts. It's a long psalm, and so I'm going to cut it, but the whole thing is in your bulletin. Lord, you have been our dwelling place in all generations. Before the mountains were brought forth, or ever you had formed the earth and the world, from everlasting to everlasting, you are God. You turn us back to dust and say, turn back, you mortals. For 1,000 years in your sight are like yesterday when it is past, or like a watch in the night. You sweep them away. They are like a dream, like grass that is renewed in the morning. In the morning it flourishes and is renewed, and in the evening it fades and withers. For all our days pass away under your wrath, our years come to an end like a sigh. The years of our lives are 70 years, or perhaps 80 if we are strong. Even then, their span is only trouble and toil. They are soon gone, and we fly away. Who considers the power of your anger? Your wrath is great as the fear that is due you. So teach us to count our days, that we may gain a wise heart. Let your work be manifest to your servants, and your glorious power to their children. Let the favor of the Lord our God be upon us and prosper us for the work of our hands. Oh, prosper the work of our hands. Time for a confession. I have been worried all week that if I talked about saints today, you might leave and shake my hand at the back and say, nice sermon, and then walk out the door thinking about all those wonderful saints and never realize that the words were about you. For if all we hear today are the words of wisdom given to us by others, then we've missed the point. We talk about saints not only to memorialize them, but to learn from them, to incorporate their ideas and their values into our own existence. My worry has been that if I offered brilliant words and noble ideas, giving credit to those that penned them, that ultimately we would think that we couldn't ever become like them, and without trying, we just write it off as unattainable, lofty, ideal land. After all, who among us really believes that we could do what Mother Teresa or Oskar Schindler did? And perhaps more to the point, who among us wants to? Perhaps the cynicism of the psalmist is not so difficult to understand. We may have all wondered aloud if our faith and our dedication to principles will ever pay off. At the same time, when we really think about it, we don't fear death nearly as much as we fear coming to the end of our lives without having made a difference. It's true, right? I have visited many, many people near the end of their life, and each one of them, in his or her own manner, has processed in their minds and aloud to their loved ones a singular question: did my life have meaning? You see, death is not the ultimate enemy. Meaninglessness is. Psalm 90 reminds us that our work may be futile, but that the important key to life is gaining a heart of wisdom. Saints are known as people who are windows in this world, because the light of God shines through them so brightly that people say they have seen salvation in them and in the household of their lives. A remarkable thing about them is that many of them were scapegoats early in their lives, bullied and called contemptible by folks around them, and yet they were able to find ways to reach out to others in love, in large part because of the hurt of their past. Most of us, and I include myself in this, prefer our saints to be heroic. We edit their stories to the nub just of their heroism. We tell ourselves that athletes can be our heroes, decorated soldiers deserve to be our heroes, dancing movie stars, the beautiful, the well-dressed, those are easy saints for us to identify. But that isn't necessarily what a saint looks like. So turn to someone nearby you. Seriously. Look at them. That's what a saint looks like. That's what a saint looks like. We love Nelson Mandela when he was washed and in a suit. But in his prison garb, and with educated South African whites warning us of his dangerousness, he was alarming. He was scary. Mother Teresa's honest writings have been alarming to other devoted Catholics. Francis of Assisi, in his lifetime, was a threat to church leaders. What made them saints wasn't necessarily their beauty, look at each other again, or their eloquence, or their societal acceptance. Each one of them had a heart of wisdom, as the psalmist said, and they found ways to love themselves and love others. So whether or not you or I are ever considered for sainthood is yet to be seen. But chances are, at the end of our lives, we won't be known for what we've accomplished, but we will be known for those we have loved and those we have served. So I send you out today to be saints, not to be beautiful or eloquent, not to be normal or anything but yourself, but to be loved and to share love and to serve others. Amen.